Think for a moment, have you ever noticed how certain behaviors repeat in women who choose to dye their hair with striking colors, such as blue, green, pink, or intense red? Is it just an aesthetic coincidence? Or is there a much deeper psychological and behavioral pattern behind this choice? Imagine that each color carries a hidden signal, almost like a silent social code, revealing personality traits, emotional instability, and even the type of relationship these women tend to seek. Today, we're going to explore exactly that, and I guarantee you, the last point that will be revealed here is the most powerful and transformative of all, capable of forever changing the way you interpret this phenomenon. Before we dive into this critical analysis, I want to ask for something important. If you've made it to this video, subscribe to the Black Pill Femme channel, leave a like, comment your opinion, and share it with someone who also needs to understand these hidden patterns. What you're about to discover here is not what traditional media says, nor what most relationship channels usually cover. We are facing a critical, well-founded perspective that can expand your worldview and reveal what many prefer to hide. Authors like Rollo Tomassi, in his work The Rational Male, especially in Chapter 10, pages 145 to 160, already highlighted the importance of external signals and women's non-verbal language in the game of attraction. However, the traditional red pill reading tends to interpret these signals only as elements of sexual selection or simple demonstrations of rebellion. What we will do here is different. We will deconstruct this superficial narrative and critically analyze what is really behind the behavior of women with colored hair, seeking to understand the emotional, psychological, and social aspects that the red pill often ignores. Reflect with me. Why is it that in so many cases, women who dye their hair with extravagant colors also share stories of chaotic lives, emotional instability, and tumultuous relationships? Is there a link between the chosen aesthetic and an inner state of conflict? Or does colored hair function as a type of psychological flag, warning the world about their identity, their pain, and their way of relating? These questions do not have simple answers, and that's why we need to walk together until the end of this video. Each stage of this analysis will delve into a different aspect. When we talk about colored hair, many people still believe that it is just a matter of aesthetics or a passing fashion. But, if we observe with a critical eye, we will see that this choice is almost always linked to something deeper. A need for affirmation, to break with patterns, and to build a unique identity in the face of a world that, according to these women, does not understand them. It is precisely at this point that the repetition of the pattern begins. In The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, Chapter 8, pages 201 to 220, the author highlights how external symbols function as tools of social manipulation. Colored hair, in this sense, is not just a dye, but a flag raised to unconsciously communicate rebellion, instability, or even emotional fragility disguised as courage. Often, this visual code is interpreted by the traditional red pill as just a phase or a sign of promiscuity. But if we go deeper, we will see that it is not just about superficial phases, but rather about internal patterns that repeat, generating similar behaviors in different contexts. Imagine, for example, how many men report frustrating and even chaotic experiences in relationships with women who have colored hair. The aesthetic detail then becomes a clue. A visible symptom of a deeper emotional state, which usually translates into greater relational instability, a greater search for external validation, and a greater propensity for sudden breakups. Think about it. Is the chosen color the cause of the behavior or just a reflection of something that was already inside them? This is where we need to open our eyes. Colored hair is not just dye, it's a message. A message that almost always repeats the same behavioral pattern. This critical perception is what differentiates a rushed reading of common red pill from a truly deep analysis. If you have noticed this pattern in your own life, comment below. Have you been in a relationship with a woman with colored hair? What was the experience like? So far, we have understood that colored hair goes beyond a simple aesthetic style and functions as a silent message, a psychological reflection of something that pulsates within these women. But now we need to go further. Why do these patterns end up directly affecting relationships? And why do so many men report similar experiences when they get involved with women with colored hair? According to Rollo Tomassi, in The Rational Male, Chapter 4, pages 67 to 84, the female need for external validation is one of the most powerful forces that shape the behavior of modern women. Colored hair, in this context, is not just an aesthetic choice, but a cry for attention. Each vibrant color acts as a showcase that asks for constant glances, comments, and validation. This need, when brought into a relationship, generates instability, because the partner is never enough to satisfy all sources of validation. The woman's need for external validation leads her to seek new sources of recognition. Robert Greene, in The 48 Laws of Power, Chapter 6, pages 89 to 95, warns that those who depend on constant approval from others become slaves to others' opinions. This applies directly to women who use their hair as a manifesto. When the dyed hair becomes a symbol of identity, any criticism or lack of attention turns into triggers. Thus, the pattern repeats. Intense relationships, full of ups and downs, where the partner often feels drained by a chaotic energy that never finds balance. Why do so many men report that, at first, these women seem intense, passionate, and even mysterious, but over time the relationship turns into drama, constant arguments, and emotional changes? Is it a coincidence? Or was the colored hair already pointing to this script from the beginning? Another important point is that colored hair also carries a message of breaking with traditions. Dyeing your hair blue or pink is not just an aesthetic decision, but an act of defiance against social conventions. This may sound liberating at first, but when this mentality is brought into a relationship, it creates a resistance to stability and commitment. Many men report that women like this always seem to be on the verge of wanting something new, different, unprecedented. And it is precisely this incessant search that undermines any attempt at a solid foundation. The most interesting thing is to note that these patterns repeat in different countries, cultures, and ages. It's as if colored hair were a universal marker of a behavioral archetype. Jung, in his analyses of symbols, already stated in the book Man and His Symbols, Chapter 2, pages 55 to 72, that seemingly superficial choices can carry deep meanings linked to the collective unconscious. In this sense, colored hair can be seen as a way of signaling belonging to a group, to a mentality, and to a life narrative that evades the stable pattern. Now, I want you to think with me. Are we facing a simple fashion or a deep psychological sign that cannot be ignored? Write in the comments if you believe this pattern can be broken or if it is inevitable in all women who choose this path. We have reached the most important point of this analysis. If you have understood so far that colored hair is not just a style, but a reflection of instability and a search for validation, now we go further. The central issue is not the color itself, but what it symbolizes in terms of identity and behavior. This is the moment when the promise made in the introduction is fulfilled, to reveal the most powerful and transformative explanation for why 99% of women with colored hair repeat the same pattern. The real secret is that colored hair represents a flight from one's own essence. A flight from stability. A flight from facing themselves without masks. Constantly changing one's external appearance is a reflection of an attempt to alter one's own internal narrative. It's as if each color were a new character created to avoid facing the reality of who they really are. This is why relationships end up becoming emotional battlefields, because the partner never deals with a stable identity, but with multiple versions of the same woman in constant flux. Rollo Tomassi, in The Rational Male, Chapter 12, pages 201 to 218, addresses the concept of a constant flow mentality, where the contemporary woman is rarely satisfied with what she has and always seeks new forms of stimulus. Colored hair is the aesthetic materialization of this flow and, at the same time, a silent warning that a different kind of stability will hardly be part of her life. Robert Greene, in The Art of Seduction, Chapter 12, pages 276 to 295, reinforces that people who live by constant reinvention tend to create fragile bonds, because they are always ready to abandon what no longer brings novelty. Now, imagine yourself in a relationship like that. With each new color, a new phase. With each new phase, a new crisis. The partner, no matter how patient, finds themselves trapped in a cycle of endless instability, where the initial intensity turns into emotional exhaustion. It is at this point that so many men report the feeling of living on a roller coaster without brakes, and not a partnership for growth. The most disturbing detail is that, often, these women believe they are being authentic by coloring their hair, when, in fact, they are only revealing their inability to deal with themselves. And here is the final revelation. The repeated pattern is not about fashion, rebellion, or style. It's about fragmented identity. It's about the inability to sustain a coherent narrative of themselves. And this fragmentation inevitably translates into chaotic and unstable relationships. Carl Jung, in the book The Self and the Unconscious, Chapter 3, pages 120 to 138, explains that when the individual does not integrate their shadow, their pains, insecurities, and contradictions, they end up projecting this fragmentation onto the external world. Colored hair, therefore, can be interpreted as the visible manifestation of this unresolved shadow. A mark that says to the world, I still haven't found stability within myself. And that's why 99% of women with colored hair repeat this pattern. Because it's not about passing fashion, but a deep reflection of the psyche, which shapes the way they relate to themselves, to others, and to their partners. If you have watched this far, I want to ask you to leave your opinion in the comments. Do you believe this pattern can be overcome? Do you think a woman who seeks this aesthetic reinvention can find inner balance and build stable relationships? Your participation is essential, because this channel exists to debate truths that almost no one has the courage to expose. And before I conclude, I want to reinforce, subscribe to the Black Pill Femme channel, leave a like, share this video, and activate the bell to not miss the next content. Also, please make a donation to help us continue this work. Here, we will continue to bring critical analyses that deconstruct superficial narratives and reveal the hidden backstages of female behaviors. On screen now, you will have access to two related videos. One of them delves deeper into the issue of female validation, and the other explores the hidden signs of emotional instability that the traditional red pill ignores. If you really want to understand how these patterns work and how they impact relationships, watch these videos in sequence. They complete the journey we started here today.